What's happening, Bills Mafia? What's happening, Sabres Mafia? Ryan Thomas here on the Thomas Take Sports podcast, bringing you another edition of the show. This one is pre recorded. You can check it out on the Thomas Take Sports podcast YouTube channel, as well as the Thomas Take Facebook, as well as the audio podcasting platforms that you know as Apple Podcasts, that I know as Apple Podcasts, as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. So thank you all for tuning into the show. Very excited to dive into this one. You see the corner logo, and the corner logo changes. That's kind of something that I like to bring to the show. The corner logo, red, white, and blue for the Buffalo Bills. The corner logo for the Thomas Take Sports Podcast is blue and gold for none other than the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres have had a marvelous March, tied for the fourth best record in the National Hockey League with a record of 7 wins and 3 losses. Last night, I went to the hockey game. It was a fun time, great company, as well as a great game. To be able to take in a great hockey game in Buffalo has been a rarity for quite some time. But for me, this year I've been to 2 of them. One of them was in October, and the other, of course, was in March. Sandwiched in between there was a game actually, I've been to 4 Sabres games this year. I went to 1 in October, 2 in November, and 1 in March. So I go back to each one of those games, and I mention that point because I go back to each one of those games, and each one of those games brought within its own frustrations, you could say, its own challenges, you could say, and I could easily agree with any Sabres fan over the course of time. It has not been easy over the last few years, especially, to be a Buffalo Sabres fan. But this month of March, we've seen the highest of highs for this fan base to receive over the course of the last 5 to 10 years. And I go back to the March 10th Jack Eichel homecoming, beating the Vegas Golden Knights, Tuck, Krebs, both scoring goals in that game, as well as shortly thereafter, the national stage was Buffalo's at the Heritage Classic, which how many times can we say that the national stage was the Buffalo Sabres stage? And it was that and then some, playing that game in Hamilton, Ontario against their arch rival, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have had a phenomenal season in their own right, ups and downs aplenty, but in comparison to the Sabres' win-loss record, Toronto's got them beat by quite a lot. So, going into that game, I thought that was going to be a tough one. It wasn't. We won it 5-2. Then we rattle off wins against playoff caliber teams that are locked in to playoff seeds. And that continued with Wednesday night's action against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which, as of recording this, that was last night. As of posting this, probably 2 nights ago. So you guys will be checking this out probably tomorrow morning as I post this show. So thank you for tuning in, to anyone visually tuning in on the YouTube side of things as well as the Facebook side of things. Always appreciate the support for the streams. And of course, as I remind you of where you can find the show, I'll also remind you to throw down comments. Let me know what your thoughts are on any of the subject matter that I am discussing in this podcast. The Buffalo Sabres and their marvelous March that they have had. I want to let you guys know that there is one hot take, and I have it right here. And it's a hot take that I forgot to add a banner to, but it's a hot take that I want to get started off with on the show today. Rasmus Dahlin will be elite. And what I mean by that is, over the course of Dahlin's very young, very short career, I have heard, and I'm not going to name any names, but in the local media, I have heard people question whether or not Rasmus Dahlin should be traded. It is a silly topic. It is a topic that should have never even been brought to the attention of the masses, but it was a topic nonetheless that was just kicked around as just talk radio fodder that this area just doesn't simply deserve to be misinformed that heavily to have the notion or to entertain the thought, the simple thought, that Rasmus Dahlin should be traded. And that was something that the local radio station, sports radio station in Western New York, kicked the tires on. Don't remember what show it was. I'm not sure if it was the flagship show or if it was just a side show, but it was an idea that was discussed heavily on the most prominent sports talk radio station in Western New York. And I wanted to call in so badly, but I thought, you know what? They might not be able to get to my call because they got X, Y, and Z callers calling in saying what a ridiculous idea this is. Rasmus Dahlin was drafted first overall 4 years ago. Not even 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years this offseason. He was drafted first overall at the age of 18. He is entering his age. By the time the season's over, he'll be 22. Rasmus Dahlin has played with 3 different head coaches. Rasmus Dahlin has undergone, I would say, probably one of the worst top to bottom organizational tolls that a player could go through, with different general managers as well as different head coaches. Different head coaches means different staffs. Different staffs means different systems in which Dahlin has been asked to play within. And I thought at the end of the season last year that we saw the smallest dose of Rasmus Dahlin that I believed we would see when the Sabres drafted him. Better late, if you want to call it late, better late than never, because Dahlin showed up towards that tail end of the season when the Sabres went from Ralph Kruger to Donnie Granato. And a player is only as great as his coach. I've said that so many times over the course of my years recording this show. And I say that for the sole purpose that this player, as great as he is, as much of a generational talent as he is, the coach has to put him in the right position to succeed. The coach has to utilize his skill set to the best of his ability. And the player has to recognize how he needs to be used within that system. And Rasmus Dahlin has looked confident, more confident than ever, as a member of the Buffalo Sabres with a full year under his belt under Donnie Granato. And going back to, the other team in Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills really got their feet moving once they were able to establish that they believed in their head coach. Once they established that their head coach was a man that you could buy into. And once the players bought into Sean McDermott, that's when we started to see the success. They didn't necessarily have the most talented team in Sean McDermott's first season as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, but the players bought in early on, bought into the message, and were able to work their way towards a playoff spot, breaking a 17-year playoff drought. And I think that is to come soon for the Buffalo Sabres. Yes, I think that is to come soon for the Buffalo Sabres because, in my opinion, Donnie Granato is not only the right man, he's the right man, most importantly, for right now. Oftentimes, the Sabres would make these coaching hires based on what these coaches did in their past, whether it was Dan Bylsma and the work that he did for the Pittsburgh Penguins, whether it was Phil Housley being a Hall of Fame Sabre in his own right, or whether it was Ralph Kruger in terms of, I don't know. I couldn't tell you one reason why the Ralph Kruger hire made sense then. I couldn't tell you why the Ralph Kruger hire made sense now. So I can tell you that Donnie Granato did have a pedigree of coaching young players. And finally, Terry Pegula, Kim Pegula, Kevin Adams, who I'll talk about momentarily, did bring in a coach that has the skills within his resume that exude the fact that he can work with young talent and cultivate young talent. And that is what the Sabres have in droves on this team. It's just a matter of finding the right coach to make that a reality. And clearly they have. And I go to the stat sheet for the Buffalo Sabres, and I look at the wins and losses too. And I go into this season just going into where I thought the Sabres would be as a franchise, wins and losses. Thought, maybe the Sabres would win 30, 35 games. Pardon me. I thought the Sabres would win 20 to 25 games. Now it's looking like they could win 30 to 35. As it stands right now, they're at 23. 30, I think, is fair to assume. 30, 32, 23, 33, and 8. They got a game at home Friday night, tomorrow night, against the Washington Capitals. Pardon me. I won't be there, but I'm looking to go to next Wednesday's game against Winnipeg. And truthfully, I expect, this is what I expect. This is the product, and this is to why I say Donnie Granato is the right man for right now. I expect the Sabres to play the Washington Capitals, frankly, like they don't care that they're the Washington Capitals. They don't care they have Alexander Ovechkin and his 40 goals. They don't care if they have Nicholas Backstrom. They don't care about who is on that side of the ice. They're just going to play hard hockey. And that's what the Sabres have needed for a long, long time. That is what the Sabres have needed. And it's exciting in the sense that you have a young group of players that are buying into their coach. And this is my next point. You want to talk about buying into their head coach. Rasmus Dahlin, of course, can be mentioned in that sentence, first and foremost. But then you ask yourself, who is the leading goal scorer of the Buffalo Sabres? Who is the guy that has set himself apart as the true goal scorer of this team? And it is Tage Thompson. And Tage Thompson's evolution is the biggest story, I think, of this season for the Buffalo Sabres. I can't come up with a bigger one outside of Dahlin, of course, Tage Thompson. And why do I say that? Tage Thompson has 27 goals on the season. His first season in his National Hockey League career, where you have 27 goals, and you have the first season in Tage Thompson's career where he had played center only this season. Donnie Granato decided, hey, Tage, we're going to move you from winger to center. Can you do it? Sure, coach. I'll give it a shot. For Donnie Granato to take that chance on a young player in the midst of his development as a winger, to put that on pause and say, hey, we're going to switch this man over to center. We feel like he could fit better at that position. That's a gutsy move. Not only is it a gutsy move, it's a move that obviously Donnie Granato saw something that few saw in Tage Thompson. And it's something that I saw firsthand last night. Going to a hockey game, you see things that you just don't see on the television. You can see certain things on TV, but being there live, there is a different element to the game that you just simply don't get watching it on TV. And that element is the fact that Tage Thompson is a massive man, listed at 6'7", 220 pounds. Now, there are few teams in the National Hockey League that have a center at that size that can move that well, that can skate, that can deke, that can stick handle, that can shoot as well as Tage Thompson does. As well as Tage Thompson has all season long. He has had 6 multi-goal scoring games. Those 6 games account, of course, for 12 of his 27 goals. It's fantastic. Truly dominant year out of Tage Thompson. And we're talking about Tage Thompson because he is the leading goal scorer of the Buffalo Sabres. There is another side of the coin to this, and that is the additions of Tuch and Krebs. Alex Tuch and Peyton Krebs. Alex Tuch last night, the Sabres' last game, I should say, got the shootout winning goal. And is a godsend to the Buffalo Sabres. For all the reasons that you know and for all the reasons that I know, when the Buffalo Sabres traded away Jack Eichel, It was a polarizing topic for a long time in this city. It was a polarizing topic as to whether or not they should trade him. It's a polarizing topic as to whose side were you on, Eichel or the Sabres. Kevin Adams made his decision. He was moving him, he was shopping him, and it had to be a damn good return in order for the Buffalo Sabres to move him. And they felt as an organization that the best return that they could get was Alex Tuch and Peyton Krebs from the Vegas Golden Knights. And ding, 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 Kevin Adams was right. Because Alex Tuch, on the same line as Jeff Skinner, who has also had his own career resurgence as the second highest leading goal scorer for the Buffalo Sabres this season with 24 goals, Alex Tuch has been probably, for my eyes to see, during last night's game, the best, or the other night's game, pre-recorded, I keep forgetting, but we won't even talk about the fact that it was just the last game that the Sabres played. Since he got to Buffalo, Alex Tuch has been the best two-way player, two-way forward that the Buffalo Sabres have had in a long time. I can't think of the last legitimate offensive force that was a two-way forward, maybe since Thomas Vanek, who most believed that Vanek didn't really fulfill his full potential post the $50 million offer sheet that Buffalo had to match to retain Vanek's services in the debacle of an offseason that was losing Danny Briere and Chris Drury back in 2007. Edmonton lays down a 7-year, $50 million offer, and Buffalo had to match it, or they would have lost Briere, Zubris, Drury, and Vanek. So, as well as Jay McKee. So, Alex Tuch has been a godsend for this team, and Peyton Krebs has embraced playing here, and that's what Buffalo wants. Whether it's the organization or the city or their fans, we want players that want to be here. It's not a lot to ask for. You're getting paid. You're playing in the CHL. You're playing in the big leagues. Act like you want to be here, because if you don't, we'll see right through it. We will see it for ourselves, and we will not want you here. But Alex Tuch, Syracuse-born, Buffalo Sabres fan through and through, rocking the goat head jerseys as a kid and all of his photos playing street hockey, living next door to former Buffalo Sabre Tim Connolly, and Peyton Krebs, who looks at this opportunity as simply an opportunity to go from playing buried on a depth chart in Vegas under vets that are making 6 times as much as what he's making, to come to Buffalo, to be a top 9 forward, top 6 forward on occasion, and as a top 6 forward right now, playing very, very well. Day in and day out, the stat sheet might not show it one night, but just consistent production in terms of having a nose for the puck and trying to get the puck into the net or to a teammate. And that is why I have to say that what is to come for the Buffalo Sabres is very exciting. Can be very excited about all the things I just mentioned, as well as what is not on the team yet, in the sense that Quinn, Peterka, Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka of the Rochester Americans right now, they've been feeding off of each other all season long. I am ecstatic to see them wear the blue and gold, whether it's at the end of this year or waiting a season. I'm excited either way. Craig Anderson, shout out to him. He wins his 300th game a few nights back against Vegas. He's had a few wins since then. Craig Anderson has been a true soldier for the Buffalo Sabres this season, playing into his early 40s now, coming back for the last year, what is expected to be the last year of his career. What is to come for the Sabres? Ideally, I'd love to have Craig Anderson stay, but I understand why he might decide to go in a different direction. So, with all that being said, I'm excited about what is to come for the team. I feel like um, this is going to be a really fun year to see where the Sabres finish as they make their push into the end of the season. This team's not going to make the playoffs, but they're trying like hell to get victories, to end the season on a good note, and to go into the season, the off season, I should say, with the most salary cap space that any NHL team has. I expect the Buffalo Sabres to make some additions to this team, in that another defenseman by the name of Owen Power, also on the way, first overall draft choice in 2021, pardon me. And the Buffalo Sabres are going to be making a comeback very, very soon. Mark my words. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Let's go, Buffalo.